Welcome to the Thought Brothers. It's June 25th, 2025. It's hot all over the country and it's hot on the Thought Brothers. Let me first say you all probably are missing Mr. Spivey. Mr. Spivey is on special assignment. I have to whisper that. He's on special assignment. Don't say anything. He'll be back next week in his place. At his request, Colonel Eric Garvin. Colonel, welcome to the show. We're going to get to you in a minute. And you can jump right on in. You've been here before. You know the process. We're going to kick it off with money. And so when we think money, we think Carlos. Carlos, it's been a hot week, brother. Come on.
Come on, man. Tell me about this, guys. Hey, Colonel Garvin, welcome back to the show. CJ, always good to see you. And Gary, always good to see you as well. Hey, back in the day, man, I'm studying ROTC, and one of my instructors says, Carlos, we have to have war every 20 years or so. So the country, that's a big money maker, man. We got to have war. And, you think about that today. And I also learned in school, high school and college, there's three branches of the government. Okay. We know about the executive. We've been heard too much about the executive lately. Judicial and legislative. Okay. It appears that under the current presidential administration, the only branch or executive branch that matters, should I say, is the executive branch. The executive branch can do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, and nobody can figure out a way to stop the executive branch. And that even includes possibly starting World War III by dropping bombs in another country. I knew that, our executive branch had a great influence over our American citizens, over so many people. I did not think that he could just simply leave Congress out of the process of possibly starting a war. So I just can't really believe that that's actually has happened. What does it mean for us? Really, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the bigger problem in the situation is that the executive branch can do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, and there's no consequences. And a few years ago on the show, I said nothing will happen to Trump. And you guys were like, "Oh man, he got 91 charges, and this is going to happen." Based on some calculations I did, I said this guy seems to get out of everything. I was really hoping I was wrong, but it appears that I was right. That he can get away with anything, and no consequences. He has the Supreme Court in his corner. He has really the House and the Senate in his corner. He has so many supporters that it's crazy, but we are starting to see the resistance, okay? We're starting to see the No Kings protests. We're starting to see a young candidate in New York City rise. Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani. And if you think about that, 33-year-old politician who is now the presumptive winner of New York City's Democratic mayoral primary. If we flash back just about 24 years ago to 2001, there was a lot of tension in the country over anyone who may have had a Middle Eastern name or ethnicity due to 9/11. And that's obviously unfair because people are people and the bad people are the bad people. But I think it shows how far that some cities in this country have come. In New York City, hey, if you've never been there, it's a city that is comprised of so many different cultures, ethnicities, backgrounds. And when you walk down the street in Manhattan, it doesn't make a difference. You could be a green Martian, and I don't think anybody would pay any additional attention to you, okay? So literally, I think Mr. Zohran Mamdani is in the right place at the right time. And I think we do need a younger perspective from in the political world. So with that introduction into politics for this show, Colonel Garvin, come on, tell us what you think about all the crazy things that have been happening in the world. What you got?
Well, Carlos, thanks for being a perfect setup, man. I really appreciate that. Uh, One of the stories that really captured my attention the past few days was the story involving the father who's a landscaper out in Southern California in Santa Ana. to be exact. And he's the father of three Marines. Two of those Marine sons are still on active duty, and one did his 4 years and he's out. As many of us saw the graphic videos of this man being beaten in his head, he's a landscaper. He was out doing his job at an IHOP, and these federal agents descended upon him, and they were chasing him, and he was holding on to his weed whacker because that's what he was working with. They sprayed some substance at his face. Then they threw him to the ground, and they just began pummeling the guy. Now, the Sun came on national news and had a few interviews. And this is the Sun who can speak out publicly because the other two Marines, they don't have that liberty of being able to do that. But some of the key themes that he addressed was the fact that this seemed to be very racially oriented. It specifically felt like a portrayal. He said his father had instilled in him and his two other brothers the need to respect and love his country and to always give back. And when he went to the detention center to see his father, which really is a measure of this man, one of the primary things on this man's mind was not his dislocated shoulder, not the fact that he was hungry, but he asked his son if he could go back there and do that job. Now, he was so dedicated to his work, he wanted to make certain that the job got done. He's been in the US since the 90s. He's undocumented, no criminal record whatsoever. And what we're seeing before our eyes, because I really want to put this in perspective, and the perspective is this: we're seeing people being kidnapped off of the streets, being deported to other countries. I call them concentration camps, right? Because I want to keep things in perspective. And all this is being done without due process, right? And if you can do that to the father who's raised three Marines, just imagine what they're doing to other folks. But in the midst of all this darkness, there's some hope here, right? And I want to take us back down memory lane here just slightly. We all remember the civil rights movement very, very well back in the 60s, and we all remember Bloody Sunday. That was the march that Martin Luther King, uh, Congressman John Lewis participated in, and he almost lost his life. Hosea Williams participated in. That particular march was being marched to from Selma to Montgomery to go before the Capitol building and to protest the fact about systemic racism, police brutality, and injustices throughout America. The brutality that was inflicted upon those peaceful marchers was nationally televised. That galvanized this country and it put the pressure on President Johnson to do something. That march occurred in March of 1965, and in August, just a few months later, the Voting Rights Act was passed, right? So the hope here is as these incidents unfold of injustice right before our eyes, maybe America will awaken and say that we do have a conscience, we do have a heart, and we don't like what's going on here. And that is what my sincere hope is.
Colonel, thank you very much. I'm about to hand it to CJ. You brought up several fantastic points. One point is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Beltsville, Maryland man who was wrongly deported to an El Salvador prison. Well, I believe June 7th, somewhere around the first week of June, he was brought back to the U.S. and is at a Tennessee federal courthouse, I believe. And what is still strange about this case is he was wrongfully deported. The Trump administration said they couldn't get him back several times. And then suddenly he disappeared in Tennessee. They could get him back, and he came back. But now it's not the subject of that he was wrongfully deported and he's home and he can go home. Now there are new charges about illegal transportation or human trafficking or something of that effect. Well, I didn't hear anything about that when he was wrongfully deported. So is the administration just trying to figure out, I don't know, I mean, something because of this? Is there something specific about this one individual that the administration has to find charges on him to get him taken care of? Or is it just the Trump administration saying, hey, maybe we're never going to admit to being wrong for deporting someone, so now we have to find another charge to place on him? I mean, that sounds maybe crazy, but we're seeing so many crazy things happen every day. How come this guy isn't home with his family if he was wrongfully deported and now he's back in the country? Any thoughts on that, Colonel Garvin? And then we can go to CJ, because I'm sure CJ has a lot of information on this.
Yeah. Hey, Carlos, I wish there's some rational explanation for this. Other than for me, I think so much of this is they're continuing with their narrative that this person is a criminal, and hence they're going to try to keep him in there and deprive him of his civil rights. Yes, if we had a sane administration in place that was reasonable and was no kidding conducting themselves like the rule of law mattered, then I think this young man would have been out of prison and all the charges would have been dropped. But as you know, all too often, the one thing you'll see throughout the Trump administration, they never, never, ever apologize about anything, right? And that's the mark of a person who doesn't have any character, because as we all know, we're humans and we are prone to making mistakes. And the proper thing for them to have done would have been to say, hey, look, we made a mistake in this case. We apologize, but that's what you and the rest of the members of the Thought Brothers would do, because you're reasonable folks and you're compassionate folks. But that is not this administration, and that's really regrettable.
Thank you,
Okay.
Colonel Garvin.
Mhm.
CJ, come on, man. You always bring excellent information. What you got for us?
Where do you want me to start? Like I say, you went all over the place. We started with Zoran, then we went to ICE being Gestapo Nazis, which they are. And like I said, there's the Trump starting a war with Iran. There's
Break it
lots of
down.
politics going
Go
on this
Trump
week.
with the war in Iran. Then we can just sort of move forward from there.
Well, as I stated last week, Trump basically directly got us involved in direct conflict with Iran on behalf of Israel. And Donald Trump got some ceasefire that he set up, which was kind of hilarious this morning. He set up a ceasefire. He tried to brand it, very on brand for Donald Trump, the 12-day war. I ended the 12-day war. Everybody stopped. And then Israel immediately ignored his ceasefire and dropped a ton of bombs, which really pissed him off. I don't know if you saw him this morning on live TV drop a F-bomb on Israel, which is something that I've never seen a president that, openly annoyed with Israel in front of the cameras. But, Trump is not great with self-control and things like that. So him basically, he tweeted, Israel, turn your planes around. I told you it's a ceasefire. Turn your planes around now. Don't drop those bombs. But, as we all have seen for the past year and a half and beyond, the Israeli government is not interested in peace. They didn't want peace. They wanted this regime change war. So any ceasefire that Trump tries to set up will be sabotaged by Netanyahu. We're already deeply in this conflict, but it seems like Iran doesn't want this conflict. Obviously, they got attacked. So they're saying, if you stop attacking us, we'll be fine. We'll stop attacking you. But Israel, again, shows that they are a belligerent rogue state right now. And not only are they continuing their genocide, as they're killing people at these aid stations every day in Gaza, where starving people line up to get food, and Israel lines them up like cattle and mows them down every single day. So while that's still happening, Israel's trying to play the victim and say, even though we attacked this sovereign nation, please, America, come save us. Come bail us out. And they want us to go fight their war for him. And the only president that has been dumb enough to do that in all of my lifetime is Donald Trump, because Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying that Iran is close to a nuclear weapon since 1992. Since 1992, he's been saying the same, Iran's going to get a nuclear weapon. They're going to be dangerous. And they've been using that same playbook. But Every other president hasn't been dumb enough to directly attack Iran on behalf of Netanyahu. This president is dumb enough to do that because he did that. He did an attack that CNN revealed didn't even barely damage those nuclear sites. He said they were completely obliterated. They were not. They were not completely obliterated, obviously. And for obvious measure, you can't obliterate their knowledge on how to make a bomb. You're trying to kill all the scientists. What Israel is just doing is barbaric. They're trying to expand their borders continually in the West Bank and with their illegal settlements. And throughout, they're trying to again position themselves as the victims in this conflict when they aren't. Like they attacked a sovereign nation that was minding their business. Iran. You can say you don't like the regime. You can say the regime hates America, and they probably do, and rightfully so. Look at what we have done to the Middle East since 2001. We destabilized the whole region. We invaded two nations that didn't attack us, and yeah, this is where we are now. So that's pretty much where the Iran conflict is right now. Israel is not seemingly interested in peace, so they're going to try to get this regime change war no matter what. And what has been revealed to many people in America is that America is completely captured by AIPAC. AIPAC, the American Israel lobby, has bought nearly every politician on both sides of the aisle, and that's why Israel gets whatever it wants, no matter who's president. It could be a Democratic president, it could be we saw what they did under Biden. The genocide started under Biden, and Biden and Harris didn't do anything about it. Trump's not going to do anything about it. And the real issue is AIPAC. AIPAC. I'm glad that AIPAC is becoming a household name. This is a lobby more powerful than the NRA. This is a lobby that has that was famously, we're talking about Zoran in New York. During his debate for the mayor, they asked every candidate, would they visit Israel? Would they visit Israel? What do you feel about Israel? What do you feel about Israel? When people in New York City want help, people in America want help. Israel has universal health care. They're okay. Like people in America do not. We should not be paying for their war. We should not be subsidizing their healthcare and their Iron Dome because they want to attack every neighbor that they have in the region. The relationship that we have supporting Israel has not been beneficial to the everyday American. It has to the politicians. They get hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars from AIPAC. So they're happy to push Israeli policy before American policy. But I think people are really starting to notice and be fed up with Israeli influence in our politics and how much that is swaying our politicians domestically. There was Trump's one of his foreign officials came out today and said America's the second greatest country in the world next to Israel. Like they're saying it out loud. Like that's not making his America first people happy. And I talked about this last week, the splitting coalition in the Trump coalition. As the America First people, mostly the extra racist ones who wanted a civil war, they wanted the military getting rid of the Mexicans and keeping the black people in check and not fighting a foreign war in Iran, sending their white kids to go die for Israel. So it's beginning to put a divide in the Trump administration with some of those actual libertarian, like we are non-interventionists. You said America first. Why are you trying to send more billions of dollars in American troops to Israel? So that's the kind of the breakdown on that situation.
Hey, wow. Now, based on everything we've talked about so far tonight, does this mean, like you said, we're starting to see change, we're starting to see opposition, we're starting to see no king's protests. Does this mean we're going to have a new generation of politicians coming up? And it looks like the young man who's only 33 years old, Mr. Zoran Mamdani in New York, again, is a presumptive winner of New York City's Democratic mayoral primary. CJ, do you see more candidates like Zoran popping up throughout the country over the next 4 years as we possibly go through a political change to a different generation?
I think it's inevitable that even the Democratic Party can't crush these people-powered campaigns, especially in this whole era of despair. Like I said, there's been no hope in this Trump administration for the first 5-6 months. And we finally have a candidate completely powered by the people. Like if you saw the amount of super PAC money spent against Zoran by Cuomo and the other forces in New York, the propaganda, and it just shows that people are really, really thirsty for change, for real change, for a candidate with actual fresh ideas, somebody willing to buck the party. I think the Israel thing was a big issue because they tried to smear him as anti-Israel, but effectively, I feel like the media helped Zoran in that way because all they would do is ask him about Israel and they wouldn't attack him for his other quote unquote radical policies that, most Republicans would attack them for because they're just obsessed with, oh, he's anti-Israel. That's disqualifying. But to the average voter, this is the miscalculation they made. Somebody being anti-Israeli government, not anti-Jewish people, but anti-genocidal Netanyahu government is a big selling point to voters nowadays because voters have watched Netanyahu's government do a live stream genocide for a year and a half. So Israel doesn't have the greatest moral standing in the world right now. So for a candidate to openly say, as Zoran said, if Netanyahu was in New York, I would enforce his arrest warrant from the ICC or from the International Criminal Court. That is a great selling point for most people, and it's something the Democratic Party thought would not be a selling point. They thought that would be a smear and get them, to have Cuomo back in office because we still have people like Jim Clyburn who endorse Cuomo and people who want to keep the old guard and don't want change, don't want that enthusiasm. The same people who killed Bernie Sanders' campaign twice. They don't want to see Zorans. The Democratic Party takes that same AIPAC money. They take that same big donor money. So a Zoran and or a Bernie or AOC, they make those other Democrats look bad. They make Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who is an absolute joke, by the way, when they asked him if he even read the War Resolutions Power Act to stop Trump from waging an illegal war, and he just said, "Oh, I haven't looked at it." You know why he hasn't looked at it? He's taken over $1 million from AIPAC, so that's why he hasn't looked at it to try to reel in Trump because he has no interest because Trump is waging a war on behalf of Israel. And guess who loves waging wars on behalf of Israel? AIPAC. And guess who takes tons of money from AIPAC? Hakeem Jeffries. So it shows you why the Democratic Party is so spineless and why they're so weak. It's not an accident. They're not just bad at this. They're taking money from the same interest that Trump is. And that makes them unequivocally unable to oppose him. So that's one of the things that happens. So a Zoran emerging in New York, running on a rent freeze, running on free buses, running on making the city affordable again, that is politics that works for people. That's politics that American people want to see. They want to see their cities more affordable. They want to see material change for them, not, oh, what I'm going to do in office is make Israel a strong nation. That is not helping me here in America as someone, here in America, as we have no health care, as we have unaffordable prices. $5 footlong back in the day is now $12, $13. Five Guys is, dang, you got to take out a loan to get Five Guys these days. So this is where we're at in America, and running on basic common sense issues like making your city affordable should be the wave that Democrats embrace if they want to win. But I'm very skeptical that their party leadership is interested in winning the way they've moved to this point.
Okay. All right. What other Colonel? That's a lot to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, again, I just applaud CJ's passion and his having his finger on the pulse of all these things. And the one thing I would say is I know the Republican Party is probably celebrating the fact that this 33-year-old won the primary, right? However, I think what we have to do is to make certain that they don't paint him as this extreme leftist, right? Because if they are successful in doing that, that will help derail folks like him and other folks who aspire to be like him. So I think that that will be really critical. But it is hard to knock, as CJ said, affordability. Affordability is something that resonates with all throughout the spectrum. Poor people, middle class people. Well, rich people probably don't need to worry about it too much, but for those main groups there, affordability is a huge thing. So when you begin to appeal to that, I think that that will resonate with blue states, with red states, and I'm optimistic, but I'm also concerned about the Democratic old guard constantly trying to suppress this, right? At this stage in the Democratic, where we're at right now, I think we need some change here. And I think it's time for some of these old heads to step aside because we need to allow some of these new young bucks come into play and not constantly trying to suppress them and not give them the airtime that they so richly deserve. But I'm excited, And the one thing I will say in closing with regard to the Democratic Party, I'm not ready to throw in the towel on the Democratic Party because this is the party that got us the Voting Rights Act. This is the party that got us the Civil Rights. This is the party that got us Obamacare. This is the party that got us Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, all of those things, right? But at this particular moment in our history, the party is on shaky ground, and we need to have some new voices in there. And I think this young man from New York might just be one of those new more voices that emerge.
All right. What other hot topics have you gentlemen, would you gentlemen like to discuss outside of politics?
Well, I'm going to start up with the NBA. I mean, OKC, man, we got an OKC champion, and I saw an article, an online article that said, like during the last 7 or 8 seasons, I think we've had 7 since the Golden State Warriors repeated in the 2017 and 2018 seasons, season ending because they'd used more than one season, but the 2016-2017 Golden State Warriors and the 2017-2018 Golden State Warriors were the last repeat champions. Since then, the next year, I'm just going to say when there's a 2-part year, I'll just use the second part. 2019 Toronto Raptors were the champions. 2020 Los Angeles Lakers. 2021 Milwaukee Bucks. 2022 Golden State Warriors did get back in there. 2023 Denver Nuggets. 2024 Boston Celtics. And then 2025 Oklahoma City Thunder. So my question is this: Are we better with, I guess you could say,
A barking
dynasty?
dog?
Yeah, I can already say the dogs are ready to go now. The dogs are ready to pump it up, make it happen.
Okay.
The dog is ready he hears me talking about the NBA. He's a big fan. Yeah, he likes the Wizards. That's what can you do? Are we better now with different champions every single year? Or are we better when we had Los Angeles versus Boston almost every year in the 80s, or Los Angeles versus Detroit, or the Chicago Bulls versus whoever, 6 out of 9 years. So guys, talk to me about, I'll go to Colonel Garvin first, because I know CJ got some perspective on this. Are we better today than we were years ago when it comes to NBA champions? Talk to me, Colonel Garvin. What do you think?
So, first of all, on this OKC series, Carlos, it was a great series, much more competitive than I had imagined because I thought OKC was going to truly dominate them. But it went to 7 games, and most of these games were very, very competitive. On paper, OKC looks like they could potentially repeat, right? But given all how many trades that constantly happen in the offseason, I'm not ready to declare that yet. Now, I loved it back during my 70s, the early 70s, when the Knicks won the championship in 1970 with Earl, not with Earl, but with Walt Frazier and Willis Reed. And then in 73, they won it again with Earl Monroe, right? Black Magic, right? And I just think that those days of being able to repeat are just so much more difficult to do these days. So I like having some of these dominant teams, but at the same time, I like the competitive nature because it keeps us on our toes all the time. I just want my team in the running, right? The Knicks. That's all I care about.
Amen to that. All right, CJ, come on, man. What you got on this topic?
Well, one, I think the Thunder do have a sustainable championship model, probably the most sustainable we've seen in a long time. They're the second youngest team in the league. So there's that. They're the second youngest team in all of NBA. The average age of their team's like 24, which is younger than the UNC Tar Heels last year in college basketball. So think about that for your NBA champions. Their best player is 26. So Shea is MVP season. He had the best season since Michael Jordan in 1996, where he averaged 30 points a game, won the scoring title, won the MVP, made All-Star, made All-NBA first team, all in one season. and won the championship and won Finals MVP all in one season. So he has a running for one of the greatest seasons ever and a 68 win team, and where his third best player missed half the season as Chet Holmgren broke his hip like an old lady halfway through the season. He needs to eat a sandwich. I'm tired of him getting hurt because he's so skinny. But beyond that, like I said, they have SGA is going to be lined up for a historic contract extension where he's likely to get about $70 million per season for a $200 plus $1 million extension. Jalen Williams is on his rookie contract, their second best player, an all-star. Chet Holmgren, their third best player, is on his rookie contract. And their role players, many of them are on very affordable contracts. And the ones that aren't, they have 20 first-round draft picks in like the next 5 or 6 years or something like that. So they can replace any expensive players they can't afford with young, promising first-round rookies on cheap contracts. So they do have a very, very sustainable model and their team has great chemistry. So those guys don't seem like they're going to get any fights and be demanding any trades. They seem to genuinely love playing with each other, especially after winning a championship. So OKC is in as good a position as you could possibly be for an NBA champion, starting your first championship run. But it will be difficult, as you said, because this is the era of parity, as they say. As the league is more competitive than it's ever been, we have more superstars than there ever been. So there's a lot of parity in the league. Nobody expected the Pacers to catch fire and just be the hottest team in the NBA, since March basically, and just be unstoppably hot. But that's what it is. The players are too good in the league. And like I said, we have Kevin Durant going to the Rockets. So the Rockets will be a new contender next year. The Golden State Warriors still have maybe another year left in them. There's, Luka and LeBron, whatever happens in LA. Anthony Edwards, if they can, get a great team around him in Minnesota. The Boston Celtics will be back once Tatum gets healthy again. So it's a league parity, like I said. But at the same time, Oklahoma City is very well positioned to, maintain their dominance in the West.
Hey, speaking of Durant, we love Durant. Durant's from PG County here in Maryland. We love Durant, but Durant's on like his fifth team. Like the days of us seeing our heroes play for one team, the majority of their career, if not their entire career, pretty much gone. I think a year or two ago, I joked around with Mr. Spivey and said, look, if you want to buy a jersey for any sport, buy a retired player's jersey. Okay. If they're retired, they can't switch teams on you. I mean, if you bought a Durant jersey when he played for the Thunder, maybe that's worth something now, but then I was going to buy one when he played for Brooklyn, but then he went to the Suns and now he's going to Houston. And I'm like, man, these guys are just all over the place. Now I can't blame them. This is the part where we definitely want to hate the player and not the game, because he's getting paid. He's making a ton of money, just jumping ship and going where he needs to go and all that good stuff. But the days of just really rooting for your team and if that one player for many years is gone. So again, I ask you that question. Are we in a better position now in the NBA overall with players changing teams so frequently? And then think about this. You just said SGA's probably can get a 200 million plus contract. Usually when you pay somebody, a max contract or close to a max contract, that sort of limits how much you have to spend on the rest of your players. I think a big thing that happened with the Chicago Bulls back in the day is Michael Jordan actually took a pay cut so they could have more players, and they got Scotty and they started building a team around him, because when Michael Jordan came into the league, the first 5 years in the league, he was just outscoring everybody and he was doing great, but the team wasn't winning any championships. He's like, I'll take a pay cut. I don't know how many players are going to say, I'll take a pay cut now. I'll take a pay cut for my day job working in the NBA for the Chicago Bulls, so you can sign some more players so we can win some championships. Because he was making plenty of money from his night job at Nike and all his endorsements. That's what, he really got rich off. We know that Nike Air Jordan deal, he's still making money on that thanks to his mom who negotiated that deal. But that'll probably never happen again. I mean, what are your thoughts on players being unselfish and saying, hey, I'll take less money if we can keep our nucleus together? Do you think that will ever happen again, or is that would have to just be luck?
It does happen occasionally, like I said, and reportedly Shea was going to take a similar deal. He wasn't going to take the max amount of money that he could get in this contract to leave a little bit of flexibility for the team. So some players have opted to that because, as you said, these big star players, they can make that money up elsewhere. If they, I think them winning and being in a big market and being successful is as valuable as, their game check, because like somebody like Shea has a huge Converse contract, like you said, with Jordan and things like that, and other ways they'll make it on the back end. And sometimes players do care about winning. Some players still care about winning. They care about their legacy, and if they feel like they can get a championship and, like say, keep their friends and teammates and, keep them paid. But again, going back to OKC, as you said, those big contracts do limit you, but that's why it's so advantageous to have your second and third best players on their rookie deals. Still, you have a lot of control over them. You'll be able to control their contracts for at least the first 5-6 years of their career. And then beyond that, all those first round picks are very important too, because those can fill in your bench and your role players with promising young players that they show they can get production out of early. And then those players will be on their rookie deals. So you'll have control of them for cheap for 4 years. And that's how they keep that model sustainable. So whenever, they get a roster they can't afford, they can make some trades, cut the money down, keep their core pieces, and just kind of rotate the ancillary pieces, your role players, your 3-and-D guys, the guys you can replace.
Okay, pretty cool.
Yeah.
One last thing is the NBA draft is tonight. We haven't spoken about that. I don't think there's any doubt that Cooper Flag, I'm still trying to figure out how this guy from Duke, I guess he was just that good as a freshman, is going to be the #1 pick. But I just to let you guys know, I checked, and this is the mock draft. It says we have Cooper Flag going to the Dallas Mavericks. It says we have Dylan Harper, a point guard, shooting guard, a guard from Rutgers, a freshman, another freshman going to the San Antonio Spurs. A freshman are just coming to play 1 year and taking off. Philadelphia 76ers are they say a guy named VJ Edgecombe, shooting guard from Baylor, freshman. Wow. That's 3 freshmen projected to go as the top. Let's make it 4. Con Nupel?
Knuppel.
A Con Knuppel from Duke, freshman. Wow. Number 5. How about another freshman from Oklahoma? Jeremiah Fears, predicted to go to the Utah Jazz. Washington Wizards, they're going to stay with a freshman from Rutgers. Ace Bailey, that's what they're saying. And then I'll go through the top 8, because was it top 8 for the lottery? Common Malach, center from Duke, freshman. Wow, good to know these guys are staying in school. Let's see. At number 8, we have Brooklyn Nets, Trey Johnson, a shooting guard from Texas. So the first 8 projected picks are basically they're all freshmen. Man, what are you guys' thoughts on that? The guys just saying, hey, I came for 1 year. They could have went to the D League, or was it better for them to go to college?
Well, they stopped the G League program, so they got to go to college now. The G League Ignite is no more. That program, they ended it. So this is the wave. Like I said, the best players that are going to go are going to be freshmen. People want that upside. The teams want to be able to get their hands on these prospects and develop them as early as possible, as raw as possible. And like I said, so the freshmen are going to get the top consideration. Cooper Flag, Dallas is the pick is in. The draft's on right now. It looks like they have selected Cooper Flag. They haven't made it official yet. They haven't announced it, but the pick is in. Cooper Flag likely to be the #1 pick going to Dallas. But anything could happen after that. There are likely to be some trades, but Cooper Flag is he's the best player in the draft. He's the most complete player. Reminds me of a Kawhi Leonard, a little bit more with better health. Kawhi Leonard, who's a little bit more reliable on the health wise, and he's only 18. Cooper Flag's also one of the youngest players. He's going to be 18 still by the time he plays his first game. So he reclassified in high school to graduate a year earlier to be in this draft class. So Cooper Flag is oozing with potential. Same with Dylan Harper and all those names. Like all those guys are great prospects. So the draft is exciting. I'm locked in. I cannot wait to watch how it goes down and see what the Wizards do at 6. Ace Bailey would be a great pick for them, but who knows if Ace will slide that far. We're going to see in a few minutes.
Hey, considering that all these guys are freshmen, does that hurt college basketball? Because 4 of the best years of my life was being a Georgetown fan when Patrick Ewing was there. In those 4 years, Georgetown went to the NCAA title game 3 times and won once. I don't know what happened on that Villanova night. I'm still trying to get over it. But it should have been at least 2 in a row. But anyway, Patrick Ewing stayed all 4 years. We'll never see a great player stay all 4 years again. What are your thoughts? Is college basketball still going to be great?
It's still great. There are a couple guys in the lottery that played 4 years. So like I said, it's not completely extinct, but like I said, those elite, top prospects are mostly going to be freshmen. just normally for NBA draft circles. But there are some great 4-year college players. There's still Cedric Howard is one. There's some players that are more experienced. Neat Clifford is another player who's going to be in the first round, who's a senior. So there are some players that still stick around and develop a little bit slower, or late bloomers that come on later. So it's not all gone. But yes, there's still going to be that trend of freshmen dominating the upper part of the lottery.
Hey,
I
NIL money.
remember, I
Yeah,
What?
get in there, Eric.
Yeah, what's going on, Colonel? What you got?
I remember back in the day when I was in DC, I used to go to the University of Maryland Terps basketball games when they were playing in Cole Fieldhouse. And they had Juwan Dixon, Cox, and all these other phenomenal players, right? But you saw them mature over the full 4 years, right? And for me, right, I understand why these young folks get out and get those big paychecks. But for me as a fan, I'm my interest in college basketball has waned. It doesn't mean that I'm still not interested, particularly when it comes around during March Madness. I'm all in. But throughout the season, I rarely watch very many games because I don't have that same level of loyalty. I was a big Hoyas fan, just like Carlos, right? And I was a big Terpins fan. But once they have all this turnover with some of the players, that to me, from a fan perspective, detracts from it. But again, I understand the financial side of this. So I'm not at all, I guess, saying anything bad about what the players are doing because they've got to maximize their earning potential.
Hey guys,
Uh,
my last question tonight is this: NIL money. We know college football is going crazy with NIL money. Is the NIL money just not as excessive in college basketball versus college football? Because you look at a guy like Shedeur Sanders, he made a boatload of money up in Colorado, and he's taking a pay cut to go to the NFL. So, what's the story on NIL money on the college level for basketball?
NIL money is still going crazy. The reason you saw 2 top 5, top 6 picks from Rutgers is because Rutgers offered 2 elite 5-star prospects a huge NIL money, and Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. Like I said, there's a reason those 2 didn't go to Duke or North Carolina or one of those big legacy schools, and that's the reason that the #1 prospect for next year is at BYU. You wouldn't expect the top college prospect to go to BYU, but BYU got a lot of that Mormon NIL money, and they're ready to open up that pocket, that blank check to be like, why don't you come? You want to spend your college years in Utah? and it costs a lot of money for a young up and coming 5-star recruit to want to spend his college years in Utah, but NIL money speaks loud.
look here, fellas, we're running out of time, but here's what I want to do. I want to ask everybody to answer the following question. I call it our closeout question. So here we go. Based on tonight's conversation, what should every listener do or rethink this week? Based on tonight's conversation here on the Thought Brothers, in your opinion, what should every listener do or rethink this week? CJ?
Oh man, you're gonna start with me. So they do. You always tell these random questions like I'm not prepared for that. What should they do? They should I don't know. What should they do or rethink? They should
Or research.
or research. Just try to stay informed on what's going on. It's very frustrating to see people, and I get it. People have jobs, they have lives, they have families. Capitalism is brutal. People are out here trying to survive, but just try to stay basically informed on what's happening, inform your own opinions on stuff, and not just listen to Fox News or MSNBC or wherever you're getting your news feed, and just diversify where you get your information. It helps a
Okay.
lot.
All right. Carlos, based on tonight's conversation, what should every listener do? Research or rethink?
I would say when they make a decision about family, finance, voting, anything that is an important decision, more so now than the last 20 years. When they make these major decisions, not only think about how those decisions affect you directly, think about how they'll affect your community and the people around you. Because now it looks like more than ever, life is really not just about what happens in our household. The people down the street who vote for this another political candidate can affect what happens in my house. People who support certain things in the community, whether it be healthcare, whether it be education, that can also affect what happens in my house. So just think about the decisions you make and consider how it affects life outside of your house as well as in it.
Okay. Colonel Garvin, you got the final word.
We often get wrapped up in our patriotism here in this country, and you see people flying flags all the time. And I think one of the questions we need to pose to ourselves is, what does it mean to be a patriot, right? The textbook definition says, hey, you have a devotion to your country, you believe in something greater than yourself, you're putting the country ahead of yourself, and you're there to serve your country or some greater need. And if you're applying that definition, I want you to apply that definition to the person in the White House. When you ask the question, does that person serve the need, or is he servicing himself? Is a patriot, again, does not call for the termination of the U.S. Constitution like Donald Trump did. A patriot does not work to upend the rule of law like Donald Trump is doing right now and his administration. A patriot does not lead an insurrection. And a patriot does not take the word of a dictator like Putin over his intelligence. A person does not seek to divide the country. A patriot doesn't call the men and women of the service veterans, suckers, and losers. And a patriot does not denigrate war heroes and their families. And a patriot is not embarrassed to be in the presence of combat wounded soldiers. And a patriot does not call on our number one military enemy to interfere with the presidential election. These are all the things that Donald Trump has done. And I submit to you that does not make him a patriot at all, despite many people calling him a patriot. And if you really believe in the veterans and support the veterans, you ought to reevaluate your assessment of this presidency. And if I were picking a patriot of this week, it'd be that landscaper and his 3 young sons who are Marines. Those are the true patriots. A man who came to this country, he appreciated what this country has done for them, and he instilled in his sons the value of respecting and loving this country and giving back to the country. It's all about service to the man. And you recall what I said. His son said one of his most pressing questions was, can you finish this landscaping job for me? It's all about service. That man has displayed more service than Donald Trump will ever display in his life. So I encourage people to reevaluate what it means to be a patriot.
Wow. On that note, folks, you've gotten some things to consider from our hosts this week. I'm Gary Johnson for the Thought Brothers, and until next week, we're out of here. Be safe.
Good night.
On base, y'all. Then I'm a funny man, y'all. My name is Larry Graham, but they call me.